Hey, everybody, welcome back. We've got another great panel lined up for you. This is going to be a juicy one, I can tell just by the conversation we had in the green room. Without any further delay, let me introduce this week's episode. Many authors think the order goes something like this: write the book, finish the manuscript, and then figure out how you're going to launch it. I think that's too late to be thinking about the launch. Your book launch should begin ideally long before the book is available on Amazon. In fact, some of the most valuable launch work happens while you are still writing the darn book. That's when you can start talking about the ideas in your book. You can reconnect with people in your network and get their input. You also get to identify potential launch team members, podcast hosts, referral partners, and of course, all the other people who might want to support what you're creating. You also can pay attention to how people respond. What questions do they ask? Which ideas get them excited? Who says, I need this book, before you've even finished it? If you wait until the manuscript is completely done to start thinking about your launch, you've missed months of opportunities to bring people into the journey. Now, I don't want authors scrambling just a few weeks before publication, trying to suddenly get people interested. I want your launch to be an extension of the relationships you've already been building. If you're getting close to publishing and want help creating a launch strategy that generates reviews and creates a pipeline from your book to your business, you can schedule a complimentary 30-minute book launch brainstorming session at booklaunchbrainstorm.com. And now let's meet today's panelists. With me today, we have Dr. Kate Vawter, who wrote Better Boss Blueprint: How Great Managers Build Trust, Inspire Loyalty, and Drive Performance, a guide for managers who want to strengthen trust with their teams and become more effective leaders. And Lisa Thie, who wrote Go, Reboot Your Career in 90 Days, a guide for people who are ready to rethink where their career is headed and take action toward what comes next. Please join me in welcoming Kate and Lisa. Kate, I'm going to kick things off with you. Tell me a little bit about who you had in mind as you were writing this book, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Good to be here, Robbie. When I wrote the book, it was with this notion that wonderfully talented, skilled people get excellent at their craft and then promoted into a supervisory role. And most organizations either have, a Word doc of training or maybe nothing as it relates to managing humans. So when I wrote the book, it was specific to that person who was skilled, talented, excited for this promotion, and didn't have a handbook on how to manage people. And now that it's out in the world, I'm finding that it's really, it's a handbook on healthy workplace relationships. And so I believe that it's a great read for anybody who works with people.
What you just described is so prevalent. I worked in nonprofits and saw that happen as well. And I know it's definitely happening in companies where people are good at their frontline responsibility, their sole contributor role, and then suddenly they're asked to supervise those people, their peers, without, it's always been a joke, actually. I mean, I remember 2 decades ago, we were like, where's the manual for actually doing this well? And it sounds like, where was it? And now here you've created it. I love that. Welcome. And now let's go over to Lisa. Lisa, who do you have in mind for your book? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robbie. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, as an entrepreneur and a technologist and somebody who has been leading in the area of AI safety for the last decade, I wrote this book because I live with one foot in the present and one foot in the future. I think I have been for a long time. And so when I saw, back in 2021, that as a working parent during a lockdown with some unexpected health conditions that popped up during a cumulative trauma, I think we all lived through, but we all came up through the same storm, but we all didn't experience it the same way. I wanted to make sure that people felt empowered as the future of work was going to change. I knew the AI shifts were coming. I've hosted the main stage at the World AI Festival in Cannes in 2022, 23, and 24. And so I wanted to make sure that I was bringing some of the best information I have as a management consultant in AI to democratize it to normal people maybe mid-career professionals, maybe my cohort of that Gen X generation, where we were prepared for a world that didn't ever get delivered. It was supposed to be the go to college and do buy the house and get married and have the kids, and that some of those more traditional analog values of what success looked like. But by the time that we got there, it was a digital world, and we've had to adjust ever since. And I think we are actually uniquely positioned to do this. We learned what happened when we ignored the safety clues from NASA during the Challenger launch. And we also saw what happened when 9/11 happened, and the world can change overnight. And so I wanted to make sure that when people hit that burnout moment, that, hey, wait, this was supposed to be my income earning years. And, when things like pensions used to kick in, our generation's the first that doesn't have that. And I wanted people to have a hand guide, because when I hit it in 2021 and what I was doing wasn't working anymore as a working mom of a second and a third grader in a pandemic, who became disabled overnight, I wanted to make sure that people had the recipe, because there wasn't a book I could buy when I needed it. So I documented my own journey and took what I've used as a executive coach for places like Amazon Innovation Robotics Lab out of Boston for their PhDs and master's students that are coming into the field now, to being a board member of multiple AI startups and working in private equity now as well, as an investor. Wanted to make sure that normal people realize this is a chance when the workplace is shaking up, like the 80s gave us when personal computing came in. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, you packed a lot in there, and I wanted to share. Like, my dad told me when I was 20, so I'm turning 52. So 30 years ago, he said, I read an article that by the time you're 40, you'll have had 4 careers. And it's probably the best sidebar conversation that I ever could have had, because I, in the moment, was like, oh, some of those things may not exist. Like, I literally had that cross my mind. And of course, the speed of invention has just been faster than I ever could imagine. And the second thing I thought was, I didn't know the term transferable skills, but the idea that I should be able to build from one to the other, that these weren't going to be completely disparate. But I mean, everything I'm doing today is cumulative to what I've done in the last, 30 years. But I think you have to be adaptive to this. And you're right. Like, in a lot of ways, our generation has had to. I mean, I went from like, my first computer in 3rd grade to like living my life on one, right? So like, I've had to adapt in such a speed. But I think even new people coming into the workforce now, like, the speed of innovation is not going to slow. It's only going to get faster. So a lot of these skills are going to continue to be needed for every generation. I think for both of you, the idea that you're writing a book that was missing, and Kate, is yours built on personal experience? I feel like for Lisa, this is something she was looking for. Were you the person needing that blueprint, or did you write it because you saw that in your clients?
Great question. A little bit of both. I was lucky to get to manage people from a really young age. And so, from about 15, 16, I was in a spot of organizing people. And so in that first decade of doing it, I screwed up a lot. And so the book is an interesting combination of personal stories and experience, as well as peer-reviewed research. So it pairs what the science says with, the practical day-to-day of being in the field and working with real humans.
Is this your first book, Kate?
This is my first book. I'm ideating on the second one. It's going to be a big picture approach of systems, and in particular workplace systems, why things exist the way they do so that we can dismantle it.
Oh, that's
but
exciting.
Yes, first book.
How was the early reception to this book, and how did it compare to what you thought was going to happen? Like, could you have imagined sort of what's evolved, what's happened since the book came out?
Yeah, I'm still in my first year as an author, so I refer to it as, it's just an infant of a book. I'm still learning. It's been really fun to see which people in my world are excited about it, and it has definitely made talking with prospective clients easier, because now there's this thing I can point to, and so it eases that conversation. I'm learning a lot. I've done a number of what I'm going to call tactical edits in the book copy since it's published. So of things like updating my lead gen or the freebies that are offered in the book. So when I wrote the manuscript and I'm like, oh, okay, I need these other things for this ecosystem to work. So yes, it's published. Yes, the manuscript is done. And like there's going to continue to be things that I update there.
Okay, I just such a helpful thing to say out loud for all the people who are listening and in the process of working on their manuscripts, that when you're busy writing, it feels like this is the entire game, is to like write this book. Many people have called that a marathon. And yes, there is a endurance test to writing a book. But then you really have to think about all the other pieces, the ancillary parts of that ecosystem, the lead gen, the lead magnet or freebies that go in there, or the email sequence that relates to that freebie, and the course or the workshop, or the what would you do on a talk if you were on a podcast or given a chance to do lunch and learn, like some of that gets built out of necessity. Someone invites you to do something and you're like, oh, I'll go build that. I actually am now signed up to do my first exhibitor booth. And now I'm like, oh, I need like a sign, and I have to create an ad for the ad book. Like for this book, it's all brand new. And I'm like, do I want to make a giveaway that's not just giving them my book? Do I want to also do a bookmark? Like all these pieces that go into it, that it's a lot of work to do. And I think it's hard sometimes to think of all of those elements as you're writing. But if you at least think about the lead gen, like how would you move people from the book to your business, get on your email list, book a call, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think I'm glad the tactical edits that you're making sound really smart. Anything you want to add to that?
I too just printed a poster. I did my first book signing at a bookshop about a week ago. And yeah, nothing like a hard deadline on the calendar to be like, oh, I need things.
Things must be made. I must make decisions.
Yep. Must send to print. And looks like we're doing the quick turn because I procrastinated and or like didn't actually know, right? Like, I'm new, I'm learning. And so for me in my first year, I'm trying, like my ongoing goal is sell more books than there are days on the calendar. So let's say a fairly low hanging fruit goal, like more books than days. And if I'm going to reach that goal, I have to keep trying new things.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to really borrow and hopefully remember to give you credit, that phrase, because I think compared to the I'm going to sell 10,000 copies unrealistic like notion, the like if I could sell 366 books a year, I mean, you'd be doing so well. Lisa, for you, is this your first book? Let's just to clarify. It is. Okay.
It is.
So with your book, similarly, I mean, there's the hopes and dreams you have for a book when you're working on it. And there's the things that you discover are possible now that the book exists. How are those shaping up for you? Like what you thought you would have this book do, and then what has transpired?
Sure. So from a context perspective, I think Dr. Kate and I organize our books pretty similarly, actually. So the first half of my book, I interviewed over 30 executive women that were in the C-suite already, either in VP or above roles at big companies or C-suite and in smaller companies. And a lot of these people I've worked alongside coming up in the tech ranks over the years. And what was really fascinating to me was to get the objective data about what the headwinds really are when we're coming up in these kinds of environments that are maybe not built for a wide diversity of people, especially as the tech industry really has been. So the second half is all how to be a successful engineer and entrepreneur and a leader once you found out what your thing really is, how to step into that. And the reason I structured that way was because the origin story of the book was pretty simple. At this time, my co-founder of my last software company had gone back inside to Apple. He was leading the male allyship training curriculum for Apple University, looking to get more women in tech empowered to be leading. And he asked me to write this book so he could license the IP, because we've successfully launched and scaled and exited multiple female-founded companies now, and had changed the threat landscape for children online using AI back when the iPhone 10 was coming out together. And so we wanted to democratize the role of DEI, not just as a nice to do, but as a necessary, because innovation is not something that only goes to people of privilege. It is talent is evenly distributed. So my goal was to make this accessible for B2B. Unfortunately, my co-founder passed away during COVID from a heart attack the day after the publishing contract was signed with Fast Company. And so the book changed. It became my testament to his lived experience of 45 years of being a boy that grew up in Bangladesh on a chicken farm and got an engineering degree in Canada, 45 minutes from where I got mine in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And our journeys through the tech industry during these changes from the dot-com bust to the era of the smartphone to where we are today. And, you know, with all that innovation has come some unintended consequences. And I think we are really proud of the legacy we built with this book of showcasing how regular, normal people can lead within these big companies and do something that matters and build a legacy. And I want more people to do that.
That's quite a story about getting this high moment of like getting this opportunity to put your voices collectively out into the world, and then him passing and you picking up the mantle and running with it. I mean, beautiful that you're able to create the legacy for both of you. When you were writing the book, you had an idea of what you wanted the book to do. Now that the book exists, has anything different transpired from what you had expected? Any hurdles or any positive outcomes?
Sure. One of the greatest outcomes that came out of this was when I wrote this book, I thought this was going to be my key into keynote speaking. I'd been doing it for a while at that point, but that was the goal. The objective was what everybody's objective is, hit the New York Times bestseller list. We all believe we might get there one day, or else we wouldn't do it, because it makes no financial sense. And it's really a labor of love in a lot of cases. But, today, the moments that matter for me are the people that picked up my book at a time when hope was lacking, when it felt like the modern world was moving maybe a little bit faster than they can keep up with. Sometimes I feel at 49 like a Timex watch in an Apple Watch world. And good Lord, I'm a responsible AI professor at a top university, and I'm the commissioner of the International AI Safety Commission, and I'm talking with the UN and Parliament and trying to help us navigate all this crazy stuff we saw on Terminator. And long and short of it, we are all growing. We are all learning together collectively. It's going to be a messy decade. And I think the best thing we can do is embrace our humanity as we engage in this transformation and come together, because, this is a unifying thing for us. We're going to have new capabilities and opportunities to lead. And it's democratized a place where people can have more of a voice in the products and services they want to see in the future.
Lisa, I want to dig in about the book itself. So you wrote this book. You talked about New York Times being sort of a pie in the sky, which it is for most of us, and it's gamified, and people spend sometimes $250,000 to try to hit that goal and do or don't make it. But you had a message, and you had a certain group of people you wanted to reach. How were you tracking like success metrics early on as you were starting to think about the book? And do you have new sets of metrics that you would now track to decide, kind of like Kate was
That's
like,
a beautiful question. I love that
a month,
question.
one book a day or more, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
My original was I want to make the seller list. That was clearly not going to happen. I hit New York, or the Amazon #1 for career at launch in my category. During this campaign, I think it revamped under the Kindle for job hunting. I was in the top 10 again. What motivates me is the person that picks up the book that's like going, God, my life feels like from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, like I am already committed on like a treadmill that just gets faster all freaking day long. This, like, every yes I'm saying to the world is a no I'm saying to myself and my family. My health is impacted. My relationships are impacted. And holy moly, I've got to stay relevant in a world that I wasn't raised for. I wanted to show people how to slow down, get it out of their heads and back into their bodies, have a 90-day recipe for making sure you're gleaning your own internal wisdom, being clear on what are your networks, what are your strengths, what are your values, and what do you bring into the workplace that's going to fundamentally transform innovation and thinking like a business owner, not just showing up to do somebody else's vision. And when you can do that, all the other pieces start to fall into place. I've seen people replace
Yeah.
$500,000 jobs that were literally putting them on a high blood pressure medication and creating panic attacks with contracts where they're working on mission-based
I'm
work
just
that
gonna jump in
leverages
here,
their
Lisa.
skills.
Lisa, do you track reviews? Are you looking at people replying and telling you how they're using the book? Is it
I
speaking
love
engagements?
I love to enjoy
Yeah,
reviews, but what really stands out to me more is the people that take that book, read it, come back, bring me back for coaching contracts, bring me back for workshops, and are
right.
actually investing in making sure that the humans come along with this transformation change in the workplace. And the beauty of those moments are that they are usually more productive because I'm not worried about AI taking my job. I'm worried about somebody that's really good at using AI, that's much less expensive, being as effective as I can be. And so when I bring my cohort along to make sure we don't fear the change, but we embrace it, we can be yet again the generation that shows up and makes the right calls at the right times. I think
Thank
it's an
you.
exciting time to be in the workplace. We're shaping the foundation of what the future of work and the future of life is going to look like.
Thank you. Kate, I'm gonna come back to you because we were talking earlier about your at least as more books in a week than there are days in the week. I just simple love this framework. What was the early reception? Because your book is really relatively new. What was the early reception? And actually, as you're getting ready to answer, I will share that you have 44 global ratings and 39 written reviews. Not nothing to sneeze at because it's really takes quite effort to even get 20 reviews is hard, but to also have a close ratio between the 1 through 5 star ratings, which people don't have to even buy anything or write anything to leave a star rating, but to get 39 out of 44 people to leave something means like you're putting an effort into that part. But tell me, like, what was that early reception like, whether through reviews or people just emailing you or booking you to speak or whatever the metrics were? How were you deciding like this is doing well? Like this is good. I'm glad people are responding.
That's a great question. I don't even know if I feel like it's doing well yet. So thank you for that feedback. It's
Sure.
healthy for me to hear and process. And my identity is still catching up of like the identity of being an author, the identity of being a successful author, of a woman who has things to say. Like all of that is still percolating. So I feel really grateful. I feel really honored. I really appreciate the folks who've been in my corner. And when I've said, hey, you want an advanced copy? Will you read this? Can you post a review? Like there were people in my world who said yes to that. And as somebody who teaches trust building, in particular trust building in the workplace, I talk about trust building as marbles, of marbles in the jar, marbles out of the jar. And so when I made that ask of, hey, will you help me? I was like, it was a vulnerable ask. And I was able to see and experience the people who said yes and then followed through and did it. And the people who, like opened the email and never replied. So for that, I'm really grateful. And now like know that there's more people in my corner and they will be people I want to show up for too, because we built trust in a very unique way. So it's been healthy to see of like, okay, these are people who actively care about me and the work that I'm doing. And it's, to be out in the world and meet new people of like hanging out at a bookshop last week. I got to meet people who were having real troubles in their workplace and were like, oh, I'm going to buy this book because I think it will help. And so that was just so special. And I, am like, whether I hear from them again, like either way is fine. But I hope that the book can be helpful, can be an asset, can be a tool that helps them alchemize the the challenge that they're facing in their workplace.
This framework about building trust in the marbles. I was just telling a prospect about David Newman, who's been part of our collective Kindle Flash Sal. So you may remember him. He has a book called Market Eminence, and he's a very well-known professional speaker and part of the National Speakers Association, which is how I got to meet him. And he gave me a list of 2,800 people for his invite list when he hired me to do his launch sequence. And I remember looking at it and saying, like, wait, your peers, your colleagues from NSA are not on this list. Because the list was pulled from people who had downloaded some piece of content, kind of, they did an opt-in or they attended a program, they were tagged a certain way. So he made a list of 100 people that were his peers, colleagues, like supporters, people who weren't necessarily on his email list, but people he had devoted a lot of attention and energy towards. And the first 100 people on his launch team, 50 came from the list of 100 and 50 came from the list of 2,800.
Wow.
And at the end, he had an incredible response rate because he had 450 people say yes, which sounds awesome, but you should also remember he asked nearly 3,000.
Yeah.
But of that 450, 225, a full 50% left a review in that time frame, and 70 of the 100 left a review. So if you just look at the math, like 70 of the 100 were the people he had the greatest trust built up with. And I was like, the people who are responding to you, like, these numbers are hard to replicate because it has to do with how he showed up for the 3 years before asking for help. And that's what you're talking about, the marbles in. Like, if you have no marbles to ask for, then people are like, who is this from? And they ignore it. They can barely remember who you are or think well of you if they do know your name. They think of someone who maybe didn't respond to their request. So if you're listening and you're writing a book, or like right now, Dr. Kate's working on, the ideation of book 2, this is a good time to start showing up. And that means lots of things. But if you're a content creator and you know how much it is meaningful to hear back, it's like hit reply to someone who wrote something to you, even if it's a mass message, to tell them how it's landing. If you listen to a podcast, write a review. If you read a book, write a review. Engage with people on their social media. Just be present and accounted for, because then when you go and ask, yes, it feels vulnerable, but you also feel like you gave. I think can you say a little more about this trust piece? Because it's vulnerable, but if you feel like you have no marbles out there, I think asking feels like begging. Like that, it's a different mindset entirely from what you probably experienced, which has some vulnerability, but it's couched in a little expectation that there's going to be a give here.
Right. I want to clarify that the marble idea is Dr. Brene Brown's. She talked about it in a Super Soul session. So not my idea, but I really love it. So in all of our relationships, personal, professional, we have a marble jar, and that is where the trust marbles go. So our individual relationships have them, and our collective relationships, like a staff can have, a jar for ourselves. And so when we first meet somebody and decide to establish, okay, this is going to be ongoing relatedness, that establishes the jar. There's nothing in it because it takes time. It takes years to have a full jar. And so if I say, hey, I'm going to swing and grab coffee, can I get you something? And then I do it. That's probably a marble in. If I say, hey, can I grab coffee for you? And I show up and was like, oh, sorry, I forgot your coffee. That's a marble out of a jar that didn't actually even have any marbles yet. If I show up with no coffee because I got a flat tire and I'm like, I am so sorry. I know I was going to get you coffee, and that my morning didn't go as planned. Can we go to lunch instead? That is both a marble out and a marble back in of an active repair. And so being cognizant of who's saying they're going to do something and does it is maybe a bigger marble. Who doesn't show up the way that they said, marble out, but did they offer to make a repair? And if yes, that's real give and take. If we are
Love
human,
that.
we are going to have errors. So it's normal for us to need to make a repair, but it's ongoing. So the longer we know somebody, the more marbles there can be in the jar. And like human, so in and out, paying attention.
I have said, if you want to be liked and build trust, say yes to the things that you know you want to do, and then do them without being reminded.
Mhm.
And if you can consistently do that, like have the boundary to only commit to the things you want to do, and the clarity to say no when it's not a good fit, but then do the thing without people having to follow up a zillion times with you, that's how you build trust. And if you're that kind of person who shows up for other people, and then you have what feels maybe vulnerable and like a bigger ask, but you have all those marbles out there. And I think authors who are nervous about the launch of their book, I mean, one of the things I tell my authors to do as they're like writing is like start writing reviews for other people's books, if for no other reason to figure out what the process looks like and feels like, because you're about to ask people to do something that most people don't do. So you should, have a few of those under your own belt. Lisa, how do you kind of prime either mentally your own fortitude or your community to be receptive to asking for this kind of level of support? There was introductions to be made, people getting on podcasts, people writing reviews, whatever the efforts were that you're asking people to do. How did you approach this as a first time author in particular, which I think, it's a lot of unknowns.
Oh, certainly a lot of unknowns, that's for sure. You definitely get to adopt that beginner mindset again. Yeah, so I think, if you don't mind, I'd like to actually build on what Kate was talking about a little bit on trust before I answer that question.
Sure.
Maybe you can lead me back once we do that. But, one of the things we talked about earlier was unintended benefits of doing something. And for me, it was being able to pivot what I thought was going to be a corporate training into an academic training. So my book became the foundation of my Leading in the Age of AI course. That is a certificate for University of Michigan engineering for professional development. It's based on the frameworks that I deployed in there, both the AI ethics frameworks, but much more around career reinvention and having a lot of agility in the way that you are navigating through the world. A lot of that comes from my leadership philosophy of being a service-based leader. And that's building that trust well before you need to start taking those deposits. Because when we start to co-create with people, it's really easy to start to see that the group can be bigger than the sum of the individual parts. And I think that that's going to be kind of that next level of where innovation will only happen at the speed of trust. And so it's important for people that have been building those trust-based relationships to be stepping up into leadership. Frankly, I pulled out of retirement to do this because the stakes are high and the time is now. But my goal is to get into my second and my third book. I actually have signed contracts and I'm working with my publisher on those. It'll come out in 28. But I think, we're living through a lot of transition. We're living through a lot of recognizing that ethics and governance and trust and safety and things that I've been talking about for well over a decade that were kind of a nice to have are going to be more like, privacy laws and a need to have. And I think there's going to be a lot of people in current executive leadership that are caught flat-footed. They really have clue where to even start. And so I wanted to make sure that being kind of the grandma, the tech elder at this point of building and deploying AI solutions in the wild for the last decade for multinational companies, as well as a startup founder myself, we gave people that trust that they can step into their power, they can step into their leadership. If you're a supply chain expert, just add AI, you can now be a company founder. If you're a finance expert, if you are, somebody who has ideas for how to educate better, there's just so many different ways. If we start focusing on the business problems we want to solve and applying technology instead of starting with the technology problems and trying to find a business for it.
And now contextualize that to a launch process where you're an author, particularly a first-time author, and you're trying to figure out how to get a groundswell of support around an idea.
Yeah, so I worked with my publisher at the time to do a bunch of podcast interviews. I still actually cherish them. I go back to them and look at them now. They age well. I think also it was very important to use my email distribution list. I have 1,500 people from running my company, and so I pivoted that to my author list. That helped a lot in terms of getting those base reviews going. Also had to be super crafty around the marketing push for things. One of the that happened that I would have never expected happened, which was Nike invited me to their corporate office for their AI summit and gave away 100 of my books. So I had to do an signing for a book that hadn't came out, and I had no marketing material, and it was like go time. You know, when Nike calls you,
this is like everything
figure it
else.
out, right?
Yeah, you figure it out. This is deadline-driven innovation.
Yeah. And so, you know, those moments where you're just like, all right, giddy up. I'm going to just smile and say I'm an author. But like, what? I've been writing in my office for like a year and a half and nobody's ever actually read this besides my publisher. And am I totally an imposter right now? I don't know. So I think the best part about launch is you have to go out there and proudly display your work that you've like been nurturing in this quiet little corner of your world, and your inner vulnerabilities in a lot of cases will be coming out. My first book was business. My second one is a divorce memoir. So think Eat, Pray, Love meets How Stella Got Her Groove Back, a little bit more vulnerable than talking about, you know, rebooting your career. And so I just think it's really fun to play in that author space and that launch space about how do you break through the noise in a market that's really saturated right now when people are really looking for pearls of wisdom and oceans of information. I think that's the beauty of being an author is you can come to people at the right moments when they're ready to change. And that's the excitement of where we are today.
So as someone who has 4 books, I'm going to share something that I think you both are building towards having, like a repertoire of books, probably. It's about then being in a conversation at a conference or a get to know you call on Zoom. And as you're listening, you're like, oh, and you get to tell them the book of your books. That would be a good next step. And
Yep.
one of our authors that comes on a lot is Kim Groshek, who's always participating in our Kindle Flash Sales, has written over 70 books. They're all mostly short, like, you know, quick to the point books, a few longer books. And she actually has like a library page on her website that's sort of leads people through a series of questions like, if this, then this, if this, then this. And because it's, you know, way more complicated than 4 books to have those conversations. But I now feel like as I never planned on writing multiple books, but as you come across new problem sets or you have new messages you want to share, like once you're past the initial angst of writing that first book, like this becomes another pathway for you. So it's very exciting that both of you are talking about future content in the forms of book. And like what I'm excited to have you back on to talk about sort of the lessons learned from book one that you're applying to book 2 and so on. I wanted to get a quick take from both of you. We'll go to you, Lisa, first. Just like you joined the Kindle Flash Sale, what was your thoughts about what you thought that would be? What was it? Why are you excited to be part of a collaborative effort of entrepreneurial authors to cross promote their books?
Yeah.
How did it fit with your business plan, marketing plan, etc.? So talk a little bit about that.
It works really nicely for me from a timing perspective. I launched my hardcover probably from a little early for the AI wave. And so when I was publishing my follow-up paperback, because the hardcover had done well with my publisher, it coincided really well with the Kindle Flash Sale timing. So I thought to myself, really, my goal is to make sure that we're democratizing this information and getting people ready for the times of work is changing and giddy up, let's go. And so I wanted to make sure that it was really accessible. So collaborating with a lot of other authors that already have audiences that are looking for this kind of content helped me to get into the right streams of people that can benefit from this. My goal isn't to sell a book. My goal is to sell somebody that they're worth recapturing their discretionary energy and coming to lead and build a legacy in the workplace, not just survive it. And so, yeah, I think the Kindle Flash Sale helped me to make sure that maybe the one person that needed to see the right message on the right day, it crossed their path, because I've had so many people come to me later and let me know that, years later, that something I said or did changed a direction for them and changed a career path and has made positive impact in the world from all the work that they do. And, we never get to know what our legacy will be. According to Maya Angelou, it's all the people we touch and all the things we do. And I think the Kindle Flash Sale helps us to make sure that we touch the more people and make hope and growth and lifelong learning part of the journey.
That's great. What about you, Kate? What were your thoughts on the Kindle Flash Sale?
I have loved it. I plan to continue, joining the party in perpetuity. My personal brand of neurospice loves a hard deadline. And so part of why I choose to join is it's a way to hold myself accountable of, okay, I want to have this new lead gen done and flash sale is here, so it needs to be done by that date. The other part for me is one of the guiding tenets of human motivation is relatedness and interconnection. And so to be accountable to a group of people who I like and respect is highly motivating for me. So it's honestly pretty self-serving of like, I do it because it helps me feel motivated to get the work done that I want to do. And the bonus is that I get to do it with really cool people who have lots of things that I can learn from and relationships I can build with. So it's fun. It's fun to get to be a part of. It's good for my book sales, but even more importantly, it's good for me as a person.
Oh, and it's so structured and so organized and so well thought out. It's idiot proof. And trust me, I've tried to fail. And still, Robbie, like your eyes in there with the right nudge, the right encouragement. It really is just the most wonderful level of accountability without pressure. And, being with other authors that are like-minded and motivated, it just reminds you that it's not as lonely of a life as it sometimes seems when you pick up your pen.
I'm laughing because this came up a little bit in our green room. Thank you for bringing it up here as well on the air. Lisa and Kate, like I think both of you being part of this as first-time authors, I particularly think that's awesome because being part of an author community it's like you weren't invited in until you had the book. Like the book was your access pass. But sometimes you have a book, but you don't know what doors to open with this. And now, being here, it's like it's an entry point to like so many more conversations and collaborations. And I feel like years from now, Kate's going to be doing something with someone and forget that they met because of some random thing they said yes to that Robbie was organizing back in 2025, 2026. I also, you said, Kate, your brand of neurodivergence and neurospicy is like to do deadline. I'm so deadline driven. Like,
yeah,
I tell people like, oh, you want me to do a thing? Like, give me a date. Please give me a date. Don't just, you can't. And so the way I run the Kindle flash sales is the way I run the launches for my clients and for my own books, which is people set the intention to do a thing. And then it's my job to help them actually follow through. Because if they follow through, they're going to feel good and I'm going to feel good. So in the context of launches, we're getting launch team members to say yes to being part of it, to committing to writing review and then actually writing the review. But in this case, it's like you get authors who commit to marketing their books, which is something they want to do. And now I'm like, well, you said yes. So now I have permission to send you all the nudges that Lisa's talking about and checking in and being like, I'm not seeing that many clicks on your partner link. And like one person, she had no link. This is 2 campaigns ago. She had no clicks and for Monday and Tuesday. It's a 4-day campaign. So the first 2 days. So I wrote a colleague of hers who had brought her in and he was like, oh, her computer died and she's having all these tech issues, but I have access to her list. Let me work with her. And then she ended up having 2,500 clicks in like a 2-day period because she had a super engaged, active, enormous list. And so I was like, you get a free ticket to the next one. She showed up and had like 4,000 clicks because she then knew what to do. She had no technical failures on her computer and she had a process in place and he helped her get things done. And so even that like behind the scenes collaborative piece, but she's helping get it in front of more people. And I feel like we all are doing our part. We don't all have enormous lists and it's not a requirement to be part of this, but you have a list of 25 people you can reach out to and specifically say, Stacey Larson has a thing where she'll say to a contact, hey, I thought of you for this book that's part of this campaign. Check out the rest of the campaign as well. And so she'll use it as a networking tool to specifically reach out to a handful of people in her network each time. So there are layers upon layers. This keeps getting more complicated. And then I try to simplify the onboarding and then it gets more complicated and I simplify the onboarding. So I love that you keep coming back, Kate, because that's a way to like find another nuance of something else you could do with it. So 3 times a year, I organize a Kindle flash sale and I'll put the link later. You can go to kindleflashsale.com basically just to get the details. As we wrap up here, love to just hear any advice. starting with Lisa and then Kate, advice you'd give to someone writing a book specifically to help them grow their business. Lisa, is there something you've said or something you want to share now that just like in a 1-minute response that would help somebody do that?
Yeah, I think figure out what your actual strengths are and what you bring to the table that's that unique problem you just can't help but want to do something about. And as long as you focus in on that and making sure that your why is really around helping people to come along with the times that we're living in as an author. I think we're all going to be referencing a lot of books as we navigate these changes. And as thought leaders and authors, we all really benefit from having this community together. So I appreciate you bringing us together, Robbie. I appreciate you making the right information at the right time accessible through these Kindle flash sales, and also training us all on how to be marketing freaking gurus. Because let's be honest, if we wanted to all work in marketing, we probably wouldn't be authors. It is kind of a weird match sometimes. And so having people like you that can bridge the gap to help us to not only do the passion work that feels aligned with what maybe where our talents are, but also the important grind to make sure that people actually do something with it and it changes the world. That's the magic that you bring to the table. So my answer is do the podcast, go to the networking things, engage with your list, bring people on the customer journey of understanding that you're there, you're trustworthy, and you're going to help them to rise to the occasion for what they're trying to solve for their own lives.
Brilliant. How about you, Kate? What would you like to share? Advice for someone who's growing a business using a book?
Right. Choose something you know you're going to be excited to talk about forever. Of once the book exists, it exists forever. People will always ask you about it. So choose something that is in your bones of whatever it is, so that now you get to talk about this exciting thing for the rest of your life.
I love that. It's true. I see. You're Dr. Kate, and I'm assuming there's an academic degree tied to this.
Yes.
I have an MSW, and I remember having a momentary thought about getting a doctorate in social work, and thinking, is there anything I'm excited about enough to do for that many years? And then you go and write a book, and that is the same level of commitment. Like you write a book, and I still get asked about a book I wrote in 2017. I still get booked to speak on it. It's not the thing I talk about all the time, but yes, if you want to be known for something, a book's a great way to continue to have that. How can people find you, Kate, and follow your work?
Thanks for asking. I post the most content on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Dr. Kate Vawter. And you can also check out betterbossblueprint.com.
Fantastic. And what about you, Lisa?
Sure. Also LinkedIn, great place to find me, Lisa Thie. And for my website, it's just lisathie.com. And I would love to connect with people that are looking to stay relevant in this era of change and lead in the age of AI. Host
Brilliant.
a podcast. I teach classes. I keynote speak on responsible AI and building an ethical AI future. So find me there.
I will have all the links in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com, which is where you'll find all the archived episodes as well. There's hundreds of shows that you can dig through. We also have a curated directory of experts who will support authors on their entrepreneurial journey, from writing, editing, publishing, marketing, and launching a book. We will also be talking about our free virtual networking events on there. We have a nascent blog that we just started, and of course the Kindle flash sales, and so much more. Go to bizbookpubhub.com. Panel, again, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your stories.
Thank you for having us.